2 weeks ago, I found myself in Manila. It was the first leg of a journey that would take us through parts of the Philippines on a mission trip. Just as fair warning, there's a lot of driving in this video. It takes a long time to get places. As you can see, Manila is very crowded. This isn't even the main part of the city that you're looking at. This is one of the more, I guess, suburban areas, for lack of a better word. People live piled on top of one another, and I mean literally on top of one another. The most striking thing is the juxtaposition between the rich and the poor. The Philippines doesn't really have a middle class. You either have money or you really don't. You can see it especially driving through cities and towns like this, where you have shopping malls, high-rise buildings, gas stations, all sorts of things like that. And then between, you have all the little houses and all the little corners and all the little shops where everyone else lives. The other thing that you might notice is the transportation. The small bus is called a jeepney. Those are sort of like a type of large taxi that a whole lot of people can fit inside of and on top of with roof racks. There are also a lot of motorcycles, which are much cheaper than cars. A lot of people have sidecars on the motorcycles, making them tricycles, and will act as a taxi service. Each tricycle only goes certain distances and certain routes, so if people use tricycles to get to and from work or to and from school, they'll sometimes have to change trike 3 or 4 times to get there. Commuting is difficult and might take even a couple of hours to get where they need to go. Even so, work in the city is scarce, and a lot of people have to leave the city and leave their families behind to go find work in construction out in the country. Coming up in just a minute, you'll see some of the tricycles and I think a jeepney on the left. At this point, we're getting near to our destination. We were going to visit a church that is the site of a Compassion International project. Compassion is a child sponsorship program, but they also have an infant survival program where they provide prenatal care and then early childhood care to infants, just to try and get them to about the age of 4 so that they can even qualify for the sponsorship program. Our group has visited this project every other year for the last 4 or 5 years. On our first visit, we even painted that building green, and our kids raised money to put that gray second story on the other half of the building. As you can see, we were warmly greeted, welcomed back as returning family, good friends. But it's always interesting when you weren't part of one of the previous groups. You feel separate. You're not quite sure how to deal with it. It's overwhelming because you're suddenly surrounded by people. But they're all glad to see you, and you're glad to see them. A lot of the moms and kids you see are part of the child survival program, and when their kids are old enough, they'll enter the sponsorship program, where they'll be provided education, health care, and other things that they need to try and lift up the family and thereby lift up the community. Compassion definitely has a holistic approach. The longer we were there, and the more the music played, the more we started to feel like part of the group. The joy of the people there was just infectious. We couldn't help but sing along, and at least try some of the hand motions, even though we didn't really know them. So, we tried our best. It was fun. It was especially fun to see the really little kids just dance with such joy. Music really is a universal thing. So is play, and it was great to see them running around in the middle and to see their moms finally give up trying to make them sit nicely over on the side. The other thing I remembered is that kids are kids, no matter where they're from or what the circumstances are. But really, I think the lesson here is that we can get so caught up in the things that we have and the pressures we put on ourselves that we forget to be thankful for all the blessings that we have. If these people who don't have many things can still have such joy, why can't we? Also, music can break down any barrier.